He noticed it because it didn't belong. Everything else along Victoria Street had the local look. Cotswold stone in tones of toast and honey, mortar weathered to agreement, door lintels that knew which way the warmth lay. And then, halfway down a wall that had stood content for generations, a single red brick, not hidden, not apologetic, placed and left there as if to keep a thought from slipping. Tom was a mason's grandson, with the practical superstition of people who work with materials that will outlast them. He had come back to Bourton for a winter's rest, the sort of stay where you plan nothing beyond soup and walking. On the third afternoon, rain put a fine polish on the village. That was when he saw the brick and felt, unexpectedly, the tug of a half-memory. His grandfather's voice explaining how occasionally a wall wants a thing it doesn't have words for, and a good mason will give it that, even if it looks wrong. He touched the brick, lightly, the way you'd touch an animal that might bolt. It held a little warmth, though the day had no warmth to spare. The stone around it felt cooler, a ring of temperate air gathered like people edging politely back from a quiet conversation. "Odd, isn't it?" said a woman in a rain hat, appearing with the village's casual knack for materializing precisely when you start asking it questions. "That brick," she nodded, "always draws the eye. Folklore grows on it like ivy. Don't go pressing your ear to it after dark, mind." "Why not?" "You'll hear what you brought with you," she said cheerfully, and went on her way, umbrella ticking like a clock. That evening, the village closed its shutters against the damp. Tom walked past the wall again, unhurried, letting the rain arrange his thoughts. He carried in his pocket the smooth, thumb-worn coin his grandfather had pressed into his palm the day Tom first set a coin true. "For the job you'll never be able to name," the old man had said. "Every craft has one." He wasn't sure why he had brought it on this holiday, habit perhaps, but now the coin felt heavier, as if reminded of an appointment. Tom stood with his shoulder out of the drizzle and peered at the mortar. Older than the brick, newer than the stones, work done on a day of compromise in weather that asked for patience. He imagined the hand that set it. A journeyman called in after a settling, listening with his fingertips to the wall's intention, and then choosing to go against the grain. He left the coin on the low course beneath the brick. Not an offering, not payment. A test of courtesy. When he returned after supper, the coin was where he had left it, but ringed with a dark oval, as if lifted, weighed, and replaced a finger's width higher to spare it the drip from a projecting stone. "Right," he said aloud, softly. "So that's the kind of wall this is." That night he dreamed of straight courses and the small ceremonial tap that seats a brick. The next day he looked closer than is sensible for a stranger to look at another man's wall. He found, incised close to the bed joint, something that was not random. Two shallow scored circles, offset and overlapping, the faintest suggestion of a Marion mark. Protection worked into the job as casually as a breath. He felt suddenly protective in turn. At dusk, the brick looked redder, as if it had stolen daylight and kept a little for itself. Wet mortar smell hung faintly in the seam, although nothing had been repaired in years. When Tom splayed his fingers on the surrounding stone, he felt a mild vibration, the kind a kettle gives just before the boil. Carts went by, tires whispering. The wall seemed to listen and then settle, like a listener nodding at the right place. He stood again, and this time, yes, he leaned his ear to it. Not for long, not greedily, just enough to honor the rumor. What he heard was not voices. It was the small, convincing sound of work completed, the tap-tap hesitation when a craftsman senses a bed is almost, but not quite, right, and then the single, satisfied knock when it is. He straightened, relieved in a way that reached his shoulders. "Thank you," he said to the wall, feeling ridiculous and not minding. That night he dreamed he was back on a scaffold with his grandfather, the old man citing along a course and saying, without turning his head, "Walls have tempers, same as people. You don't bully them, you listen." In the dream, the odd brick would not settle until Tom breathed out and set his palm flat to the bed. In the morning, he did exactly that, stood in the lane, hand to stone, and waited until the feeling of a held breath eased. The rain hat woman passed again and gave him a look that said she had seen this sort of neighborliness before. "Better," she remarked, and was gone. By the end of his stay, he no longer checked for the coin. He knew it would be exactly where he left it, with the water ring kept off it by that considerate adjustment. On the morning he left, he set the coin once more beneath the brick and tucked into the arras a curl of pencil shaving. "For the job you'll never name," he murmured. The rain had passed. The village brightened. As he shouldered his bag, the odd brick seemed less like an intrusion and more like a held note in a chord, necessary for harmony. Some imperfections are not flaws, they're signatures. A single red brick can be the place a promise chose to live.